So close your eyes and just imagine that you are painting a masterpiece. But instead of using vibrant colors, you are using only shades of gray. And now I want you to imagine that you are cooking your favorite meal, but instead of using spices and herbs, you are using only cooking oil. That's all that you're using. And I hope that doesn't sound very good to you. Sounds pretty bland to me. And so today we are going to be talking about the truth about cooking oils and how we can rediscover the vibrant palette of flavors that nature offers us by cooking smarter, not harder, and turning our meals into masterpieces of health and taste without a drop of oil. So, we are going to talk about the skinny on oil today. Yes. And so, let us get going because there's a lot of stuff here. I'm just going to make sure here. How's everyone? Yes, we've got our Instagram going now. So
Doing
we're good.
good.
All right. So we're going to start with some of the health risks of oil. So, and I think I've seen a lot that comes from heart health. I think there's lots of studies, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the studies on they really are on focused a little bit on the heart. I guess that's where the research dollars have come from. But here's the skinny on oil. Number one, it is so high in calories. So there are I think it's 9 calories per gram of oil or fat, and that's all fat. And when you look at carbohydrates and proteins, they are 4 calories per gram. So there's a huge difference in the caloric density between oil and all of our other foods or our other macronutrients. And so, because they are extremely calorie dense, when you took 1 tablespoon, is 120 calories. So you're getting a lot of calories in 1 tablespoon. And it is so easy to really overdo it on your calories. And you really need to use the oil sparingly. And we're talking about seeing if we can go without the oil because it also can contribute to weight gain and obesity. And so for me, I am somebody who really likes my sauces, and I am unapologetic when it comes to liking to really sauce up my food, uh, especially like a salad or it's like something like I don't know when you just like I smother it, okay. And so when you're using oil, I remember I took a recipe that has a cup of oil in it for the dressing, and it's got oil and vinegar and all that stuff. And I started looking at the calories in it, and I got to say, I just about fell over and died. It was so many calories. And you don't think about it. And a lot of dressings and oils and stuff, foods that we eat have oil in it in some way, shape, or form. And it tastes good too, right? So, I mean, when you go out, I started getting in the habit of having French fries when I was going out instead of a salad. Yeah, so and you're getting that oil, you don't even realize what you're getting. The next thing, besides the calories, it's actually a very nutrient poor. So we have our whole food sources of fats, which are going to be your nuts and seeds, things like avocados as well. So there are foods, olives are rich in oil. And when you're getting it from a whole food source, you are getting the nutrients of the food as well. But when you are having oil, pure oil, basically the nutrients have been stripped away, and all you're left with is the fat. And so there's no dietary fiber, which we know is very important for us. And there's no vitamins and minerals. So this is where you're getting all these calories and you're not getting any bang for your buck, other than the taste. You're not getting any benefit from the nutrients. And it also is something that I mentioned before has a big impact on heart health. And so certain oils are rich in saturated fats. So those would be things like palm oil and coconut oil. And they can raise our LDL or bad cholesterol levels. And that increases our risk of heart disease. Now, the other thing is if we are repeatedly heating oils, then that will end up with trans fats and other harmful compounds that will further exacerbate any heart health issues that you have. And so, if you think about it, a fast food establishment or any establishment that's got a fryer, they likely are heating those oils over and over again that they're frying the foods in, and they have lots of fried foods. So you're actually putting yourself at risk for higher amounts taking in trans fats and other harmful compounds. Another one that's quite interesting is that when you are heating cooking oils at a high temperature, it can actually lead to the formation of harmful compounds like aldehydes, which have actually been linked to increases in inflammation, DNA changes, and the risk of chronic disease like cancer and neurodegenerative diseases. And then finally, our oils also, the ones that are high in omega 6 fatty acids, which are sunflower oils and corn oil. So, this is kind of getting into your vegetable oils, can actually promote inflammation if you're consuming them in excess. Although I'm not sure, like excess, it doesn't take much oil to be in excess. And there needs to be a balance between the omega 6 and the omega 3 fatty acids. Um, and we do need both. But what happens is with the vegetable oils, we're getting far more omega 6 fatty acids than omega 3. And so that was the whole omega 3 fatty acid thing to get those up. But if you don't, so you got to get them in balance. And really, we want to stay on the low fat side of the oils for our health. Then we're going to look at some research that was done. So I've got a few research studies. And the first one, I'm calling it the Lion Diet study, although I don't think it's the Lion Diet. To be honest, I think it should be pronounced Lyon because the study was actually initiated in Lyon, France. And until I saw Lyon, France, I thought, oh, that's the Lion Diet. All right. So this study was actually initiated in the late 1980s in Lyon, France. And it was a randomized control trial involving patients who had survived a first heart attack. And they were aiming to compare the effects of a Mediterranean diet against the heart healthy Western diet that was at that time was recommended for preventing heart disease. And so what they did is the Mediterranean diet in the study emphasized fruits and vegetables, bread, and beans. And they had included more fish and poultry rather than red meat. Now, the diet actually replaced the butter and cream with a canola based margarine that was rich in alpha linoleic acid, which is a type of omega fatty 3 acid. And so what they found in the study is that there was a significant reduction of reoccurrence of a heart attack in the group that was on the Mediterranean diet. So they saw a 50 to 70% reduction in their risk of a recurring heart attack compared to the control group that was on the modified Western diet, the heart healthy Western diet. And so what they concluded was there was a strongly suggested, let's say, that the Mediterranean diet, rich in the alpha linoleic acid, could significantly reduce the reoccurrence of heart disease over the traditional diet that lowers fats, that is lower in fat but has higher omega 3 fatty acids. That was the first study. So there was another study that is done in 2018, the Pre-D-Med study that focused on the Mediterranean diet and the impact it had on heart health. So this one was done in 2013, the study, but they found that there were some issues with their methodology. So they redid the study in 2018, or they reanalyzed the data in 2018. And when they reanalyzed the data, it confirmed that the Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil and nuts reduced the incidence of major cardiovascular events among people who were at high risk for cardiovascular disease. And so their key point was that there were potential benefits from specific types of oil, like extra virgin olive oil, when used judiciously within the context of a healthy dietary pattern. So it would be lower on the fats. Now, one of the things I'll comment here, the extra virgin olive oil is the reason why it's called extra virgin olive oil is it is a cold pressed oil, so it doesn't go through the whole heavy refining process that some of the seed oils go through, like corn and canola and your vegetable oils. They are highly processed. A good and true extra virgin olive oil is cold pressed, which means all they're doing is taking the olives and putting them through a press, similar to the way that you would do a juice with a cold pressed juice. And so it's not going through any of that high heat refining. The trouble that comes with the extra virgin olive oil, and I have not experienced this myself, but there is, how do you know that you're getting what you want? Because extra virgin olive oil is quite popular, and there are manufacturers out there that are cutting it, and it's not as pure as what we would want. Now, I don't have anything specific on this, but what was said is that the way to tell if you have good virgin olive oil is to cool it. And when you put it in the fridge and you cool it, it will be cloudy. It won't be clear. Now, that brings me to a point is that oils can go rancid very quickly, and they should be stored in the fridge. So that is also another thing to keep in mind, keeping it in the fridge. Now, the next study is the 2019 BMJ study, which was looking at fried oil and cardiovascular health. So this study examined the effects of consuming fried foods with different types of oils on the heart health. And they found that the type of oil and the frequency of consumption were significant factors in cardiovascular um, risks. And they said that regularly consuming fried oils, fried foods that are fried in oils, particularly high in saturated fats or that degrade when heated, was not good. So there were risks with that. And I don't know that that would be any surprise, but that was done in the study. In 2020, there was a study on the omega fatty 3 acids from plant sources. And this one, they investigated the heart health impacts of alpha linoleic acid, which I probably should just say ALA. And they found that that is found in flaxseed oil, and the study found that the higher levels of the ALA were associated with lower risk of cardiovascular mortality. And so that study supports the use of flaxseed oil because it is beneficial source of omega fatty 3 acids, and it aligns with what we are doing in our program, our Kickstart program as well, if you're doing the Kickstart program. Now, their last study that I have here is in 2021. It was a systemic review of cooking methods and heart health and heart disease. And what they found here is that they looked at the association between different cooking methods and the risk of developing heart disease. And they found that high temperature cooking with oils, like deep frying, was linked to an increased risk in heart disease and hypertension. And so the key point was that they recommended to avoid or minimize using oils in high temperature cooking. Okay. So this is kind of from the review of the studies, and I think it gets a pretty clear pattern of kind of keeping those oils to a minimum. And I'm actually very, very fortunate in our family. We didn't when I was growing up, and also for my kids, we didn't do a lot of deep frying in our house because, like, that's a lot. To me, that was a lot of work to have the oil and all that stuff. It's kind of an occasional thing. So, for example, we have this little tradition that we do during the Christmas holidays, where we make our own sushi. And so one of my jobs when we make it as a family is to make tempura vegetables. So that would be an example of a time when we would do oil cooking with like deep fried foods. But normally we do not do deep frying at all. I'd say it's like once or twice a year. But like some of those foods are so good, but not good for you. All right. So we won't dwell on what's not good for us. I want to talk about oil, and then I guess looking at it from a nutritional perspective, and some key insights to consider when you're looking at oil. So whether you know it or not, we've talked about the what's in our food, and that all of our plant-based foods actually have protein, but all of our plant-based foods actually have fat in them as well. Now, it may be a small amount of fat, but they still contain some essential fatty acids that are crucial for our health. So, I mean, ones that we would think of are nuts and seeds and avocados, but even things like spinach have their own fat content, which can help with the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. So just because it doesn't look like there's any fat in it, there's natural fat in all of our plant foods. So it's not like not using the oil, because we do need fat in our diet. There's no question about it, but we don't need as much as we need of carbohydrates and protein. But also we are getting them when we're eating our whole food, plant-based foods. And also, our body can actually synthesize certain fats from other macronutrients like carbohydrates and protein. While there are essential fatty acids that the body cannot produce, like our omega-3 and our omega-6 fatty acids, there are others that can be synthesized within our body to meet our physiological needs. So sometimes we are actually producing the fats inside of us. Our bodies are an engineering marvel, miracle, whatever you want to call it. And our body knows best. Not us, our body knows best. And so the other thing is that the essential fatty acids, so essential fatty acids, like essential amino acids, means that our body cannot produce the fatty acids on our own. And so those ones we have to get through our diet. And so those are crucial for building our cell membranes, producing vital hormones, and producing inflammatory and healing processes. So we want to make sure we're getting those essential fatty acids. And I already mentioned omega-3 and omega-6, but again, in the right quantities. So from a holistic view on nutrition, there is a balance. We have to understand that there is a balance of things in our diet, and keeping a balance is really important. So we are always emphasizing the whole plant-based foods, which will ensure that we're getting a healthy balance of macronutrients along with our fiber, our vitamins, and our minerals. And they work synergistically together for our overall health. And like I said, our body knows best what it needs more than we do. As long as we're feeding it a good variety of whole food, plant-based foods, then we are giving the nourishment that our body needs to keep us well. And our body is very adaptable as well. We can actually adapt to different kinds of diets and extract the nutrients we need. And that actually is a testament to the complexity and efficiency of our body. We want to optimize the dietary fats that we're using in our body. And so we need the fat, but we don't need the pure oil that has all of the things stripped out that are good for our body, and just the oil. So when we summarize it all, our diet provides us with essential nutrients, and our body's innate wisdom will metabolize, synthesize, and regulate the use of all of these nutrients efficiently. And that really is what underscores the importance of a whole food, plant-based diet. And so this concept is actually really what it's all about. That goes whether it's fats or proteins or carbohydrates, just getting, maintaining our health through a variety and balanced dietary intake. And that, as we found in many studies and many of the Deb Show, is whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes and beans, and whole grains. Pretty simple. At least I think it's pretty simple. Okay, so we're coming to the same kind of conclusion that we've come to on some of our other Deb shows, but how do we cook if we're not using oil? Because let me tell you, oil makes things taste good. And, I think for me, so sauteing on the, sauteing onions and garlic and other veggies when you're making a soup or some kind of a dish when you're, doing the sauteing. I always would use just a little bit of oil, a sprinkle of oil to do that. But you can actually do it with water, and you don't need to have the oil. So how do we cook without oil? I like it there. The other place that I really like is in oven in roasting vegetables. Adding the oil really gives it a little bit of pizzazz to be. So what do you do if you're not using the oil? And those two were probably the hardest ones for me. Uh, and so, if you think about it, if we're cooking with oil, think about it as you're in the summer. It's like, I don't know, 80 degrees or 30 degrees Fahrenheit Celsius, whatever, 90 degrees or 30 degrees Celsius, and you've got a heavy blanket on, and it's just, think of your oil, that processed oil, as being unnecessary because it's adding unnecessary calories and potential health risks that we don't need. So let's think about oil-free cooking. So one of the things you can do is steam your vegetables. So that way you're not using fat and you can retain some of the nutrients that way. Water sauteing is another way. So basically, when I said you can use a little bit of water or broth instead of the oil. And I think, Kathy, you mentioned at one point, how do you make sure you're caramelizing your onions instead of just cooking them? And the way that you can do that is to put a little bit of water, and then you really have to babysit them around in the pan and keep adding just enough water to keep it from burning, because the burning is also not good. Just like reheating oils and high heat cooking of oils is not good for us, the burnt food is actually got some of those same issues with carcinogenics and stuff in it. So you don't want to burn your onions, but you want to just, but I think when you're using oil, you don't have to move them around and babysit them as much. But when you're using water, you might have to, do a little more scrape in the pan and shifting them around. But you can do it. Me personally, I take the lazy way out. I just put the water in, and I don't go for the caramelizing. I just cook them, and that's it. And that works for me. But I can appreciate that caramelized onion does add flavor. The other one is you can oven roast instead of. I love oven roasting with oil, but now what I've found is what works for me is to oven roast by having a lower heat, which is also better for your cooking process, and covering the vegetables instead of leaving them open on a baking sheet. I will put them in a casserole dish and roast them with a little bit of water so that they actually get some steam, and roast them till they're almost done. And then I'll put them on the baking sheet for the last 10 to 15 minutes of cooking. So that's the way that I found that works for me. But also make sure you're using parchment paper. You can just roast them on the baking sheet with the parchment paper or a silicone mat. But with your spices and everything on them, I didn't find that worked for me. But if it works for you, then that's great. And then the other thing is dressings. So a few things that you can do is use some emulsifying ingredients. So you could take your vinegar, your mustard, your citrus, and add herbs and other flavors so that you don't have to add the oil. I know in our Kickstart program, if you're doing that, we do use the flaxseed oil. So that's where we're getting our oil for the day is through the flaxseed oil. So you can use some of that. Well, we're making a pretty good quantity of dressing. So, when one dressing will probably last me 4 meals or so. So you're not getting all of that oil. I use about a third of a cup of oil. So you're not getting all of that oil in one sitting. You get some of it spread over, like I said, around 4. And maybe if you're a regular person and you don't smother it, you might get 5 or 6 meals out of it. Who knows? But that's another way. You can use things like hemp hearts and cashews and the cashew cream to add creaminess to your dressings. Another good one for adding creaminess is adding other vegetables like potatoes. Baked potato can make it creamy. You can add other vegetables. The sky's the limit. I mean, beets, sweet potato. You could use peppers, lots of different things that you can use. So there's lots of ways that you can be creative with your dressings. Because if I take an oil and vinegar dressing and I just take the oil out, doesn't do very much for me because then you end up with a very watery dressing that doesn't stick to your vegetables, and it ends up like a pool of soup at the bottom. So you do want to make sure that that's not. We want to eat well and we want to eat tasty food, and to me, just taking the oil out of the dressings doesn't cut it. And so, if you're using oil in your dressing, use the flaxseed oil. That will help. Or you could cut it out by using some other, ingenuity with your other vegetables and making your own emulsifiers with it. All right. Any questions on our skinny on oil, the skinny on oil today? Yay, Kathy.
So if just think of a pan or a pot, any size pot that you're putting on the stove, or even a frying pan that you're putting on the stove. How much water do you need? Like, is it just to cover the bottom of the pan?
Yeah, that's what I do is just cover the bottom of the pan and then
not that much water at all.
No.
Okay.
Just enough to cover and then watch if it evaporates, add just enough again to cover it.
And don't you think it's kind of cruel that they did that study for these people on fried foods? I mean, they already know fried foods are bad. And they're doing another study on fried foods.
Well, now they know the whole truth, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It was just a study that was done. OJ?
Yeah, I have a question. So, you mentioned that olive oils are good for the body and overall it's healthy. So right here in my country, we consume more granite oil and palm oil. So, but doctors would be like, "Oh, palm oils are better." We use palm oil to make soups, like we use it in lots of our soups. So some doctors would be like, "Palm oil are better, and they have more vitamins." Or you can use granite oil because some are unfiltered. They have lots of, what's it called? Saturated fats in it. Yeah. So, but now my question is, do you think palm oil are actually better? I don't know if you've ever used palm oils before, or
So my husband from West Africa used palm oil all the time in some of his cooking. He'd get this big jug of palm oil, and he would use it. And when he used it, because I got to say, he made very good food, but it was so high in fat. It was a lot of oil. And
Okay.
also he used a really high heat in his cooking. And I found when he did the cooked with the palm oil with that high heat, it didn't withstand the high heat. It just is not meant, like you could tell it was burning the oil. You could tell the oil was burning. But anyway, that's no more because we're now no longer together. But anyway, so I am familiar with palm oil. And the thing with, if you look at palm oil and coconut oil, because there are, I'm just going to put it out there. There are different factions of people who think palm oil is better versus same with coconut oil are healthy. But when you look at it, especially from a heart health perspective, both of them are saturated fats. And we found in some of the studies that we've looked at, that saturated fats are not good from a heart health perspective. It increases your bad cholesterol. Now, the way that you tell that it's a saturated fat typically is that at room temperature, it's a solid, not a liquid. And that's the
What
difference.
about groundnut oil?
So
You know,
groundnut, or
the
so
extract from
basically that's
groundnut. You
peanut
get
oil.
oils from groundnut too.
Yeah, so peanut oil would be the same as olive oil and no, not olive oil, avocado oil, where if it's been processed and they go through a high heat process to extract the oil, then it's been highly refined. And really, if you look at it, there's, it's a liquid. There's all of the nutrients have been stripped out of it at that point. And that's why all you're getting is the fat. You're not getting any of the good nutrients from it. So I would say it's probably
Okay.
similar to your other oils. Like we use a lot of vegetable kind of oils here, like canola and corn oil. They
Yeah.
basically extract the oil from the seed, and I think it's the same, but it's the
Yeah.
nut. So I hope that helps.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it
I
does. Thank
yeah.
you.
It does and it doesn't, right? I know because they taste good, but you have to weigh what your the benefits of tasting good versus
And
not.
your
And I'll
health.
go back to what we said yesterday. Is that on occasion, if you're going out and it's a treat, and then if you want that because that's what you want, on occasion, it's probably not going to be harmful. But if you're using these things all the time, that's a different story. So, you've got your regular healthy practices, and then there's your occasional, um, live it up more. And I hate to say that because you can live it up without having all this stuff too.
Yeah.
So, I can challenge you to that. We can live it up without having all these.
Yeah, but sometimes you just want to be naughty.
Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. So when you want to be naughty, go for it. But don't be naughty all the time, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're back in the kitchen tomorrow, so we will see you tomorrow for our 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for the Deb Show. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.